which falls count anywhere.
Let me talk to you. Yeah. Talk about your songs. Talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says I just whipped your ass. You? Yes. You there? Sitting at home. Acknowledge me.
Guess who shows up for no reason at all to get his grandstanding and hot dogging in?
Everybody knows that Hulkamania is the strongest force in this universe.
Unlike you, I don't waste all these people's time bitching and moaning and bitching and bitching and bitching.
But I'll say one thing. I am, for one very, very good reason, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be.
In which falls count anywhere.
New Falls Count Anywhere podcast, part of the Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Earnest, EJ Christian. We have a loaded show here today, and of course, every week we're joined here by my co-host. He's of course 1/3 of the Mind Wrestling Podcast, also host of the Rob the Genius Podcast. My man, Rob the Genius. Rob, what's going on, bro?
Good to be back.
We got a lot to get to, bro. We're going to celebrate anniversaries. We want to flashback to 30 years ago when the NWO became a thing. A lot to get to. Rob, first and foremost, we got a new NBA. We got a new NWE champion a week later.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us were expecting it based on what had been set up last Friday. But it wasn't quite who we thought it was going to be.
I mean, the thing is, and here's the thing with me. It shouldn't be surprising, if we're being honest, given the location where Raw was last night. See, when we were saying, like you said yourself last week, that Sam losing the title before SummerSlam, on the table. You said MSG at the main event in 2 weeks, on the table. You said this on the show last week. So it's on the table. Okay, what I didn't think of until probably a couple days ago, because I don't really follow it until I figured out what's going on, is that Raw was in Chicago on Monday. All right? CM Punk from Chicago. Also, CM Punk has been off television since WrestleMania, losing to Roman Reigns. Timing's perfect, right? WWE loves surprises. And when you announce it's kind of obvious too also that, okay, Cody and Sammy get a rematch immediately. Feels kind of soon a little bit. A little bit. I mean, I was impressed with this in the past, but it feels kind of soon. Yeah, I know there's some shenanigans going to happen there to some degree. So once I saw that Cody busted him up, I said, Punk's coming in. I'm not surprised Punk happened. I called it. It was just too obvious. So CM Punk now new WWE champion. Your thoughts?
Okay, so I got to make a confession.
Okay.
I got a little too insider-brained for my own good.
What do you mean?
I thought basically that I thought this was one of those things where they just used Sammy to get a moment in Saudi Arabia, and they were just kind of disposing of him. And I consider that to be a pretty tone-deaf creative decision.
Okay.
But they have made tone-deaf creative decisions before. Okay.
Why stop now, right?
Yeah. So I honestly thought they were making just another tone-deaf creative decision where, they used Sammy to get a moment in Saudi Arabia, and now they're back home. We're like, okay, that's enough of that. And they were going to just go back to Cody. And then, now I thought Punk was going to come out and challenge Cody afterward. Because look, Punk ain't been on TV since WrestleMania, since the Raw after WrestleMania. You're back in Chicago, 2 months later, 3 months later. He's obviously coming out. He's obviously going to.
It writes itself, bro. It just does.
So it's just a matter of like what he's going to do. And So I figured that I figured they were gonna have Cody win it back, and then Punk was gonna come out there and challenge him, and then we would continue it on Friday, and then it would lead up to something at SummerSlam between the two of them. Basically, I thought they were screwing Sammy over, creatively. Basically, I thought they would just use them to get that moment, and then they're going to kind of kick him to the side again. So, and I wasn't happy about that, to be honest with you, because we've talked about how they're kind of really rapidly, getting close to the edge there with Cody. There's only so many times you can keep having him win this thing back, and
Ooh,
win it in such a
I
way
think
that.
Rob, I think we're there. I watched the highlights today of SmackDown and Raw today just to prepare for the show. And when Cody, what happened when he came out on SmackDown, the pop wasn't as big as it used to be. He won his match, I think, against Jey Uso on Friday. The pop was as big as it used to be. I watched him on Raw yesterday. The pop wasn't big as it used to be. And I'm gonna set a topic probably for next week's show for this about Cody Rhodes. I'm gonna save it, put it in the file it for next week. But let's just say that everything we've been saying about Cody Rhodes and about the build and the fatigue possibly, and we're now like 1990, 91 Hogan era right now with Cody Rhodes. We might be approaching 1992, 93 Hogan now with Cody Rhodes. I think people are a little tired of it.
Yeah, and I think it's just yeah, I do. And I think it's largely because of I think there's just it seems to be other than him winning the title, and they didn't really add any substance to, his title
Right.
defenses or his feuds or whatever, I think. And
Now, whose fault is that? Is that the company's fault? Is that his fault? I mean,
well, I think it's well, I mean, he is what he is as a character. Like, everybody's character has, certain lanes that they fit into and certain limitations, right? I mean,
mhm.
but as a booker, if you have a babyface champion in particular, like it's easy to have a heel champion because they can just be an asshole, right? And if they're good at it, enough people will get mad at them that they want to see them lose, and then you can just cycle them through challengers until it's time for them to lose. With a babyface champion, you have to, like you have to create, you know, villains for them, a roster of villains basically for them to deal with. You have to do, you got to do character work.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, you have to do kind of deeper, more three-dimensional kind of things if you're gonna have a babyface champion and keep him on top for a while. Then, like, you got to put more, his character or her character has to develop, more detail. You have to have, everything requires more creativity and more work and all of
Yeah.
that.
And even then, it's not guaranteed to work. I think I've come to a place now where I realize that I just don't think you can have a long-term babyface champion and think that the peak's going to hold. It's not going to work. Even Hulk Hogan suffered from that in this first reign because, as you remember, you know this very well. And Vince had to scrub the tape. Jake Roberts, 86. Remember when Hogan had a little feud and Jake took some of his shine, and we can risk that to scrub up the tape. This is why you don't see a lot of long-term baby faces hold the title long, because what happens is that there's wear and tear, and there's also a brand new toy that comes in. So the brand new toy for WWE these days now is Obafemi. It's Trick Williams. There's all these new toys around there that are now taking a lot of the attention away from Cody. Also, we have Roman's back now full time again. So it's hard. It's very hard to see that. That's why part of the reason why Austin worked and it still works to this day, because Austin, again, name me a Steve Austin title reign that stands out. None. Because he spent most of the time in chase mode.
Yes, but here's the thing. I mean, at some point, like, you can't have every babyface champion have a short reign and then go back into chasing. At some point, at some point, you got to have a babyface champion who actually holds a belt for a while.
Now, a while means what? A year? Because Cody did do that. Cody got a year. Cody got a whole calendar year.
I mean, at some point, yeah, you do eventually have to have a babyface champion who can hold the belt for a year at least. Yes, you can't, because you can't just have people have 1 month title reigns and then go back to chasing. And because look, the Attitude Era was a different era, because they had live competition every Monday, so like you had to do things at a much faster pace because the other guys were doing stuff, and if you were moving too slow, the audience would change the channel to the other guys.
Yeah, that's right.
There are no other guys now, so I mean, there are other companies, but nobody's going ahead.
They're not in the conversation, right? They're not in the conversation. They're not. They're not 8 o'clock on Monday and Fridays.
They're not. Yeah, I mean, nobody's going head to head, right?
Right.
So, there are no other guys because nobody's going head to head. Okay, there's nobody running a wrestling show on Monday at 8, or there's nobody running a competing show on Friday at 8 o'clock either. And just like in AEW's on Wednesday, there's nobody running a competing show on Wednesday.
Right.
Okay, so that there are no other guys to turn to every whatever night you're watching wrestling. But so we're not going to see an Attitude Era booking anymore, where guys win the belt at 8 o'clock and then lose it at 10:30. I mean, we're not going to see that type of thing anymore. But yeah, I mean, it's something because even because having the short title reigns for your baby faces and them going back to chasing, that'll get tired too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you got to have variety. And so, you need to have a long-term heel champion sometime. But sometimes you also need to have a baby face who holds it for a little longer. Yeah. But if you're going to have a babyface champion who holds it for more than 5 minutes, then it's a little more work. It's creatively, it's more work. You have to write better television.
Right. So where do we go from here now? So Punk's champion now, right? All right. Yes. I mean, get all the stuff around that. Punk's champion. Do we get Punk and Gunther? There's a story there to be told, obviously. They've been at SummerSlam last year, remember?
Yes, so I don't think we do it again.
Right. Do we get Punk and Cody one-on-one? That's the story there as well, too, also. Do we get a triple threat match between Punk, Cody, and Gunther, or even Sammy? Or do we get a fatal four-way with Punk, Cody, Sammy, and Gunther? There's a lot on the table at this point to really unpack here. How you do this? The stories we told here.
Yes, and I think Gunther's going to end up. I think he's going to be occupied because they keep doing this thing with him and Nick Aldis, and so I think Nick Aldis is going to come out of retirement and he's going to wrestle Gunther. I think
at SummerSlam.
I think so. They're not doing all this. They're not doing all of this just for Nick Aldis to not wrestle again.
So we're going to go through pretty much almost a calendar year. We'll go through having a title, is what you're saying. Because he's had a championship in almost a year.
Yeah.
A lot longer. It may be a year already.
Well, he lost at the SummerSlam last year. So
right. So there you go. So it looks like we're going to go through a calendar year. I'm going to the title. Which okay. I'm not against it. I'm just saying we're in a new era now.
Yeah. This stuff happens, man. I mean, you can't. I mean, because I think SummerSlam. Put it this way: Cody, Punk, and Sammy are all going to be involved in the match.
Right.
It may not be a triple threat. It may be Cody versus Punk, and Sammy gets involved some kind of way. I can see that, or it might be a triple threat. They're obviously not pushing Sammy to the side here, because the post-show promo he did and all that. It's very clear that they're.
Oh, we'll get that in a second. I got audio for you for the folks who don't know the new promo that just dropped. In fact, you want to go there? We can play that right now. Because it's going to add to the Punk segment here too, also. Because as you know, CM Punk returned to the company 3 years ago. CM Punk, a very polarizing, controversial figure in WWE and for that matter, wrestling lore at this point now. He's people. There are people who are, whether you think it's kayfabe or not, he just does not. They don't get along. Okay, so WWE about 2 hours ago before we start recording drop Sami Zayn's promo right after the match. Literally raw promo, post-match interview, not even an interview, just kind of like he just pretty much ranted for about a minute. And he had, I don't know, you tell me you think this is a kayfabe, was this a real? Because I have something to add to this in a second. Maybe I can find this damn file. It'll be nice. Oh, there it is right there. Here's the raw post-match promo from Sami Zayn.
I have a question. Come with me. I have a question. How is it that after 24 years of crawling and inching for every little inch to get the WWE Championship, after I finally get it, 9 days after I get it, that piece of can walk back in here after not being here for months, and waltz right in and get it? Get a chance? That mother, he has no business! No business!
And of course, he's now he's emotional. He starts crying on us, and he's crying visibly. You can't see, obviously, we can't play the video because I don't want WWE to copyright strike me. So they won't, because those assholes will do that, obviously.
Yes.
Now I bring this up because this, I said CM Punk very polarizing. Okay, I do a topic on this show. I do a show every Thursday on this feed called EJ Loves the Internet. I just recorded this week's episode earlier today. I did one segment on the show today where I broke down Drew McIntyre's interview he did with, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Chris Van Vliet, somebody. Maybe Earl Hawani, who knows? It was a sit-down interview. And they talked about CM Punk on there, okay? And basically, he went, actually, you know what, real quick, for context sake for the listeners and for you also, I might still have it here. Hold on, I might still have it here. I'm going to play it for you real quick. Give me 1 second. Is it here? Yes, it is. It's here. I'll play it real quick. Here it is. With Drew McIntyre.
Wrestling, and you have a match with somebody that you genuinely dislike.
Oh yeah, CM Punk. Can't stand
is that genuine though?
Oh yeah, he's a genuinely terrible person. I grew up around him. If anyone doesn't know him out there, just Google him. I used to say this to the fans because CM Punk was gone from WWE for 10 years because he couldn't hack it, so he quit. Even though WWE gave him everything, and all the wrestlers that made him look good and lost to him and made him a big giant star and made him millions of dollars, he turned his back on everybody, left, took his ball and went home. Like absolute piece of crap. He came back to the company, and then everybody's cheering him because they've been chanting his name for years because he is very much like Charles Manson, where he can just convince these fans he's a good person, bro. He's a messiah, and they buy into it. And I'm like, good for him. Like, he's a talent, much like Charles Manson. He's a talent to get in people's heads and just make them do what he wants them to do. So they would cheer him, and they started turning on me a little bit. And I was always the Scottish warrior, the hero. I kind of, held WWE. We all did it, but I was the champion during COVID, during the pandemic, when nothing else was on TV. I was the one holding it together. I was like, guys, we can get through this together. I'll be, your warrior. I'll never give up on you. And I tried never to give up on the fans, even though at that point they started choosing this other guy and cheering this other guy and kind of booing me. I was like, guys, I thought it was your guy. This kind of hurts my feelings. Like, I've went through hell for you, and this guy doesn't care about you. And as time went on, I talked about facts earlier. I deal in facts. I said, just go on the internet and Google his name and get the character witness reports of the people that know him. He's a genuine piece of crap, and get the character witness reports of me. I only ever tried to help people and encourage people to chase their dreams and learn from my mistakes. He's absolute trash, and it made for compelling TV. We ended up having a very entertaining rivalry on TV. We went back and forth on the microphone. He's somebody, when I talked about kind of learning to be quick on your feet, he is very quick on his feet. He is very, very good on the microphone, and we shredded each other. We said horrific things about each other, and it was entertaining for everyone else. But we don't like each other, and we laid into each other. Like, people started questioning, go, wait a minute, this pro wrestling thing, I thought it was, when these guys are hitting each other, it seems like they're actually hitting each other, because we were. And we kind of had an understanding without kind of saying it to each other that, listen, let's try not to break each other's noses. Let's try not to cause any permanent damage to each other. When we go out there, we feel this way about each other. Let's just let out in each other. Let's see it as some kind of therapy. And we never had that conversation. That's just the way I felt. And I assume the way he felt. And for our audience, it turned into gold because personal issues equal money. If you genuinely believe, like any boxing fight, UFC fight, if you think they genuinely don't like each other or they don't like each other, you're generally going to pay more money. You're going to watch, and it resulted in great entertainment for the fans. But CM Punk is trash.
All right. So I brought that up because, again, that's feels like the sentiment in the locker room currently now. Seth Rollins has been vocal about how he feels about CM Punk. He said it publicly on many different platforms. And I think we covered it, I think last year on the show. Roman Reigns, it has issues with him too also. There's actually some reaction. I'll look at some here. Here's some of the critics of last night in the locker room alone. People who are in the lore of WWE, for example, who are not very happy with the booking result last night. You got Kevin Owens, for example, saying in 2014, Punk called out part-timers are coming back, taking the title and running. 2026, Punk comes back, takes the title and runs. The hypocrisy is real. Drew spoke out. Logan Paul spoke out. Becky Lynch spoke out. Seth Rollins once again speaking out. Jack Perry, AEW, 2014, WWE, and he spoke out too.
Well, that one's a shoot. Everybody else is working. That was a shoot.
Yeah, that's definitely a shoot. I say that to say this, and yeah, maybe they're not best friends and all that. By the way, look at this thing before we go. Look at this here. The old WrestleMania 9. It's Cody Bret Hart. Cody is Bret Hart and CM Punk is Hulk Hogan. The WrestleMania 9 swerve.
Yeah.
I said it to say this, Rob. Do you think this? Okay, the Sammy part, because now it's kind of like in vogue to talk shit about Punk, in a sense. Is a Sammy version also a shoot, or you think it's more of a okay, let's burn some lines a little bit here, but not really,
Okay,
what do you think?
Well, okay, so those are all people who. Well, I don't know how Logan Paul actually feels about Punk, but we know Seth and Punk don't like each other in real life. They're not friends.
Logan Paul said, "Part-timers are the problem. 2026 CM Punk, hold my Pepsi."
Well, so I think he's just playing. He's just playing.
Yeah, that's what I think also. Yeah,
but from what I've heard, this is all kind of guy who knows a guy who knows a guy saying this, but Kevin and Sammy are not particularly friendly with Punk either.
right.
And I'm going to guess Becky probably isn't because her husband isn't.
So Seth, right? So there's a connection there, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I don't know if she has any personal thing of her own with Punk, but her husband does. So,
What to say?
But I think it's no coincidence that all those people who commented, with the exception of Logan Paul, it's no coincidence that those are all people who are known to not be particularly friendly with him. And I think they're working. It's both, right? I mean,
It's blurred lines.
yeah, it's part of the, and it's part of the work, yes, but it's work based off of how all of them probably really feel. So
Yeah,
none of those people really like him. Again, I don't know how Logan Paul is with him, but the rest of them, there have been plenty of reports and rumors and stories, or even flat out confessions about not liking him very much.
yeah, and it tracks across many different promotions too, also.
Yeah, and look now. Jack Perry's obviously he's 100% shooting,
Right?
Because he and Punk obviously they actually got into I don't know what you would actually call it. I wouldn't call it a fight. It was a or something backstage.
Right? That's a little tit for tat.
Yeah, something backstage.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's crazy. So let me ask you this then. Let me ask you this before we wrap this segment. So we're still about a month out, a little under a month out from SummerSlam.
Yeah.
What do you think we're going to get ultimately? What will be the match of this feud?
Actually, all three of them will be involved. There'll definitely be a match with Punk and Cody. The question is it a triple threat, maybe, or does Sammy involve himself some kind of way? It's gonna be one of those two things. It's gonna be a triple threat, or it's gonna be a one-on-one, and then Sammy is gonna find some way to get himself involved.
Right. And then there's also another wild card too. Also, I keep bringing it up every week. The Viper, Randy Orton, he's still lingering.
Yes,
Assuming he does get involved. So all of a sudden this storyline has become very interesting now, and you're fleshing out more. Sammy wins, Sammy loses. Punk's back. Punk's now probably gonna be on SmackDown now for the foreseeable future. You know, so things are now evolving with this storyline where now all of a sudden this is interesting. So
now there's now some of this is also there's a business side to this also.
Okay,
Because
explain.
actually I looked this up today. All right, so Punk came back at Survivor Series 2023. And since then they've had 10, the big 4 pay-per-views, Rumble, Mania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series.
Mhm.
And out of those 10, Cody's main evented in 9 of them. Roman's main evented 8 of them, and Punk has main evented 7 of them.
Mhm.
And no one else has more than like 2 or 3.
Right.
So those Cody, Punk, and Roman are your big 4 main eventers, more or less, since 2024. Since beginning of
Right.
2024, your big 4 pay-per-view main eventers are Cody, Roman, and CM Punk in some way or another.
Right.
Now there are other people who come in sometimes, but
A Cena here, a Randy here.
a few times, yes. But those are so this is SummerSlam. SummerSlam is the second biggest show of the year. So you were going to have, Cody and Punk in one of your big matches. And it was hinted the night after WrestleMania that at some point they were going to be fighting each other.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to be involved in one or both of them are going to be involved in some big match, one of the biggest matches on the show, because that's just what happens at these big 4 pay-per-views. And Roman's already occupied with Seth, so why? So there's a business reason as to the booking here. We shouldn't just ignore that, whatever.
Yeah.
Because if there wasn't, then look, they might have just let Sammy keep the title longer and do something with him as champion or whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, we'll soon find out. We got a month to go, man. And I will say this much: this storyline, which I thought was very uninteresting at first, a couple weeks ago, certainly taking a turn for the better now. I'll tell you that much. Because whether or not you like how they booked last 2 weeks between Sammy winning it and then Punk getting it back, you may not like what they've decided on, but it's interesting. And you at least want to be watching every week now going forward, see what happens next. So, and there's a lot of tentacles to this feud, so we'll see what happens there. All right. We also had another legend and future Hall of Famer. Apparently, we got reports this weekend that one of your favorites, Sheamus, is set to depart the company for 20 years. According to Fightful Select, WWE approached Sheamus with an offer for a restructured contract extension. The new deal reportedly offered less money than his previous contract. Sheamus swiftly rejected it. This is part of a broader shift on the WWE's parent company, TKO. Analysts like Dave Meltzer notes that TKO is treating veteran contracts like the NFL franchise. Rather than paying premium legacy salaries to aiding talent, they prefer to allocate those resources towards younger, less expensive talent. WWE has already quietly moved Sheamus to the alumni section of WWE.com. He has completely wiped all references to WWE from his Instagram X accounts, changing his handle name to S. Ferrelli, and not to his real name, Stephen Ferrelli, because he is playing out the final months of the contract rather than be released early. He will not be bound by a standard 90-day non-compete clause. Once the clock officially runs out on the remaining weeks of his deal, he is a complete free agent. Now, Sheamus has not been on television since November 17, 2025, when he teamed with John Cena and Rey Mysterio on Raw to defeat the Judgment Day. Shortly after that match, he underwent major shoulder surgery in December 2025 and has been sidelined, recovering ever since. He leaves behind a massive legacy as a 4-time world champion, Royal Rumble winner, and King in the Ring, with the Intercontinental Championship being the only major accolade that to elude him. Because he can still deliver incredible physical high-caliber matches, he's expected to draw massive interest on the open market. With sources like AEW reportedly stating that they didn't even know his contract was expiring, guys like his former tag partner Claudio Castagnoli, which is also Cesaro and WWE, are expected to heavily push for him to make the jump. Now, you are a massive Sheamus fan, as you've admitted some times on this podcast.
Yes.
I guess we shouldn't be too surprised. He's been off TV for a long time, but we thought this injury.
All right, so there's a lot of pieces here. So he's 48 years old,
Yeah.
and he gets injured a lot.
Yes, he does.
Of course, some of that is because he's 48 years old, of course. Um, but I don't know like the last time he actually worked like a full year. So the last few years he has missed a lot of time with injury.
Right.
So it's not just age, right? It is the fact that for large chunks of the year he is not available. Um, and so if we're looking at this like like a sports team would look at their roster, then yeah, it makes sense. If a guy can't play 16 or 17 games for you anymore, he can only play 8 games, but those 8 games he's still really good, then yeah, you don't pay him the same amount of money if you're going to keep him around. Now,
Right.
of
Right.
course, this is not the problem. Well, this is not a professional sport, though it is a performance. So the difference is, Sheamus isn't going to get your quarterback killed because he, lost a step dropping back to block the defensive end, right? It's not, it's not that. It's just in wrestling when there are no other ramifications when you get older in wrestling. It's just you personally can't work as often anymore, or you personally can't, go as hard doing some stuff as you used to be able to, right? Like you're not going to get somebody else injured because you can't move as quickly anymore, right?
Right.
Um, so it's a little bit different. Now I know TKO wants to treat it the same because it's to their benefit or advantage to treat it the same, but
Yeah.
it's not. Now that being said, I mean, I guess where I one thing I am kind of not happy about is the fact that he never won the Intercontinental title. They had plenty of chances just to give it to him, even if it was just for a short time.
Especially when there was a period for a long time where it didn't even matter. Just give it to him. Let him get
And
his
then also
Grand Slam.
and also the fact that they played it up on TV.
Yeah.
Right.
That too.
They made it a TV plot point, you know. And look, if they had never discussed it, then no, it wouldn't have mattered. Because look, they never talked about John Cena not winning the Intercontinental title, but they just decided to just give it to him at the end, right? But it had never been a talking point during his career that John Cena's never won the Intercontinental title. But they just gave it to him at the end.
Right.
They made a point to tell us that Sheamus had never won the Intercontinental title. They made storylines out of him chasing the Intercontinental title, trying to finally win it. And they they could have just given it to him for a month. And they didn't. And for me, you know, I try not to be too nitpicky about creative stuff, but when you open the door on something for your audience,
Yeah.
you need to follow through.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're not if you never mention it, then that's fine. But when you open the door, then you need to walk through it. Okay.
Agreed. Totally agree with you.
And there was a 2 or 3 year period where they had 2 or 3 years to do it. From the time they really started mentioning it a lot, they had several years where they could have done it and just but they didn't, right?
Mhm.
And to me, that is a waste. That is I won't go. It's not insulting your audience's intelligence, like some people like to say, but that is one where you are basically sticking it to your audience because you brought this thing up for a long time. You made us interested in it. You got us rooting for him to do it, and then you just didn't bother. And to me, that's a critical failure. And I
Right.
know, look, Sheamus was not a main eventer. He didn't sell 50,000 tickets. I know, but I mean, he's somebody who made your television show better for over a decade. And him being on a pay-per-view in a match made the pay-per-view better. Him being on in a big match on TV made the TV show better.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that has, that has an indirect, well, not actually, it has a kind of a sec. It's not, the same as putting Roman Reigns' name on the marquee and then you sell 10,000 more tickets. No, it's not the same thing, but there is a kind of secondary kind of effect that people like Sheamus have on your business. He makes your show better. And when your show is better, more then people want to watch it more. And somebody like him, to me, when you take advantage of things when you have the chance. And it would have hurt absolutely nothing to give him a short intercontinental title reign since you made the point to keep mentioning it on television.
Yeah, that point you driving home, and I agree with you 100% on that. Do you see him? Okay, like we everybody always says when you talk about these releases and these departures, first the company line is, oh, going to AEW. This feels like an obvious AEW move because of the connections he has with, as you mentioned, Claudio Castagnoli, who was formerly Cesaro.
Yes, that would be absolutely 100%. That's to me, that's an easy call.
And a perfect fit too. Also,
they were one of the best tag teams of the last 10 years.
Mm.
The two of them.
The bar, right?
Yes, and so that's an easy call to do. And look, it would be hilarious if we got the Bar versus the New Day in AEW.
Oh my gosh, I didn't think about that.
New Day is. Everybody is saying that they're all but guaranteed. So this show
and they're almost 90 days are almost up.
Yeah. So that would absolutely be funny to see them.
Do we know when Sheamus' contract officially ends?
No, I don't. So it must have just ended because he just changed his name on social media and all that back to his, And also, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on your show before, but
okay.
Before Sheamus became a wrestler, he was involved with some people that I'm a big fan of.
What do you mean?
He was Bono's bodyguard in Ireland.
Bono's bodyguard?
Yes. In
Really?
Ireland, yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Bro, that's
before he started wrestling. Yes.
And that's significant here because, as you know, Rob on the show is a big YouTube fan. So that's why he mentioned that. Rob is a big YouTube mark. He marks on YouTube. Marks for Bono and Edge. So
Sheamus was Bono's one of Bono's security guys.
That's interesting, bro.
Yes,
that's
before
awesome.
He got into wrestling.
That is awesome, bro.
Yeah.
So wherever Sheamus goes, he'll be a success, and we'll be watching him. Obviously, I hope it goes to AEW. I'll tell you what, you add New Day and Sheamus to AEW's roster in the short term for the next year or two, because I say only a year or two because of the age, obviously, but he's in great shape.
Yeah.
He definitely have a very legitimate roster. They'll pull some eyeballs.
Yes.
They'll pull some eyeballs, and hopefully, when you pull eyeballs, you have an opportunity here to win fans over.
Yeah, and I know, look, some people don't like the idea of AEW bringing in those guys, but you know what? Look, you bring in people who people like us who are casual, when it comes to watching AEW.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be more likely to watch if the New Day shows up.
Absolutely.
Or if Sheamus shows up. Just like, you know what? Mm-hmm. Mercedes showing up got people like us more interested. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And what that does also to the product is that it gets it by doing that, it brings more eyeballs to look at the younger talent there.
Yeah.
In hopes they stick around going forward. That's the whole idea of this in the first place.
Yeah.
That's why they do this.
Yes. Because ultimately, people tune in if there are people on the show they want to see. And it's a lot easier to get people to tune in if there's somebody they know.
Yeah.
That's just, and that doesn't mean you sign everybody who gets released from WWE, because no, but if there's somebody there who will get some people to watch them and who has done high quality work, you absolutely bring them in.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yes, you bring in New Day, you bring him in there. And a lot of people think Bailey will be, because Bailey's contract is,
I think next year.
Rumor is up that I heard everything from this fall to early next year.
Yeah.
Don't know, but Mercedes, a couple of weeks ago, like sent her out a little invitation on her Instagram story.
Mhm.
It was like a match kind of poster with the two of them on it for a future AEW pay-per-view, and and it was Bailey under her former name. So,
well, wherever Sheamus goes, it'll be great. I'm looking forward to watching him where he goes, and I'm obviously a fan of the bodyguard of Bono. That's really cool. I did not know that, bro.
Yeah,
I did not know that. That's awesome. All right, so I just realized not this week, but today is the 30-year anniversary of the biggest heel turn in pro wrestling history. Today is the anniversary of Hulk Hogan's heel turn at WCW's Bash at the Beach, July 7th, 1996, the day the NWO was formed. Before we get to talk about the NWO and the history of that, I want to play the clip of the promo, the end of the promo too, also, which really I thought was the best part of the promo, of Hogan turning on the WCW audience and the end of Hulkamania.
Look at all of this crap in this ring. This is
Mean Gene.
In the future for you if you want to hang around the likes of this man Hall and this man Nash.
As far as I'm concerned, all of this crap in the ring represents these fans out here. For 2 years, brother, for 2 years, I held my head high. I did everything for the charities. I did everything for the kids. And the reception I got when I came out here, you fans can stick it, brother. Because
you see Kevin Nash. Yeah!
If it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, you people wouldn't be here. If it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff would be still selling meat from a truck in Minneapolis. And if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, all these Johnny-come-latelys that you see out here, wrestling wouldn't be here. I was selling out the world, brother, while they were bumming gas to put in their car to get to high school. So the way it is now, brother,
I never understood that part,
Hulk
actually.
Hogan and the New World Organization of Wrestling, brother, me and the new blood by my side, what you gonna do when the New World Organization runs wild on you? What you gonna do? What
He
you
grabs
gonna
Hogan,
do?
Gene. Good lawyer. This part's important, though.
Damn it, let's get back to you.
Tony Schiavone
All right, we
nails
have
it here.
seen the
Watch.
end of Hulkamania. For Bobby the Brain Heenan, for Dusty Rhodes, Gene Okerlund, I don't know. I'm Tony Schiavone. Hulk Hogan, you can go to hell. We're out of here. Straight to hell.
That's important because you need the commentators to sell it too. And Tony Schiavone sold it perfectly. You can go to hell. This was as a diehard wrestling fan, is one of the biggest inflection points of my life. Andre slamming Hogan slamming Andre, obviously at 3 was a big one. Mega Powers exploding, Hogan losing inside the Warrior. All these things. This was a massive one for me because it was one of those things where I don't remember a world Hogan was a heel. We know he was a heel before the first, back in 1980, with, Sterling Golden and bullshit, all that crap.
Yeah.
I am considered and I've always said this for years, that I am a Hulk Hogan disciple. In other words, I am the biggest Hulkamaniac on the planet. So in 1996, at 16 years old, I'm like, okay, what am I doing here? So he's a bad guy now. What am I doing here? And I end up becoming and sticking with Hogan as a bad guy. I end up saying, you know what? I'm gonna ride it out, bro. I'm gonna ride it out. Let's see what's up. Because he has a point here. Because we heard the boos in the last couple of years in WCW that, it wasn't sticking. Hulkamania was there, and, he had a ratings improved for WCW, but it wasn't anything crazy. But this moment here is what changed everything. This changed the game. This changed everything for wrestling. This changed everything in terms of how Vince did business years later.
Yes.
That's why I say Hogan's the greatest of all time, because Hulk Hogan's the greatest heel and greatest babyface in history of wrestling. He's the GOAT for a reason. This is why. So, Rob Genius, where were you 3 years ago tonight?
Or 30 years ago, I was all right. So that night, now that was July 7th,
Mhm. Literally 3 years ago
1996.
tonight. Literally.
Okay, so I was in between my fourth and fifth year of college,
Mhm.
and there were some guys I went to school with who were still watching wrestling at the time. So they would have they'd have Nitro on in like the lobby of the dorm on Mondays. And, I occasionally walk by and see what was going on or whatever. But I wasn't like really back in by any stretch of the imagination. But the night where I happened to be walking by when they were watching it, the night where Scott Hall showed up, and I knew he was Razor Ramon. I'd heard of Razor Ramon, but I didn't know about all the kind of backstage stuff or who was leaving to go where or whatever. I had no idea about any of that. So I saw him show up, and I was like, wait a minute. He doesn't work there, right? Like this is, oh, this is okay. This is something here because like, and it was staged perfectly. He just showed up, right, and during the match, and came out of the crowd and all that stuff. So I was like, oh shit, like this is something different. And then he kept coming out there, and then a few weeks later, then Nash comes out there with him. I was like, well, that's that guy Diesel. And it was, it was just that alone was very attention grabbing because
Yeah.
he came out there in their street clothes. Right. There weren't any vignettes or anything,
Right. Right.
teases about, oh, they're coming to WCW. There was none of that. They
Yeah.
just showed up. They're in their street clothes.
Yeah.
And it felt very real, right? Obviously, it was,
Especially so also too when you talk about non-competes, they literally left. I think days after and came on television. Like I think the curtain call was like literally a week before Scott Hall's first appearance on WCW programming.
yeah. So
You
they
know what I'm saying? So it wasn't like you had to wait 3 months for those things. It's like boom. Wait. You were just on TV. You're just on TV and with Vince like 2 weeks ago, a week ago, and now you on Eric Bischoff's television now. What's going on here?
yeah, because non-competes weren't a thing. Well, that was another way they changed the business
Right.
because non-competes weren't a thing. You could just show up.
Yeah.
So because Lex Luger had showed up on Nitro the year before, and he still had like a whole month of taped WWF matches
Yeah.
on TV, after he was gone, right?
Yeah. Right.
And of course, there was the infamous thing with Medusa where she shows up with the WWF Women's Championship and throws it in a trash can.
The year before that, right?
Yeah. So this was, this was those were kind of like some oh shit moments. And so I started paying attention again a little bit, just kind of every now and then check and see what was going on. And so I knew about, okay, well, the Bash of the Beach is coming up, and Hall and Nash going to reveal they were going to have their third person. And so, so even me as a kind of a casual was interested. I was interested, like, well, who's it going to be? And I kept up enough of what was going on to know that Hogan hadn't gotten the greatest reception. I mean, he wasn't getting booed out of the building.
Right.
It was a lukewarm response. There was some booze mixed in there for sure, and that's because he was never welcome in WCW. Okay, as a WCW loyalist, Hulk Hogan was never our guy. Hulk Hogan was the enemy.
It's LeBron. Is LeBron in LA?
Or even worse, it'd have been
Right.
imagine like Larry Bird coming to play for the Lakers,
Oh my God! Can you imagine that?
or Magic
Actually,
going to
can't.
play for the Celtics. It was
Can't
like,
imagine that.
or Jordan going to play for Detroit.
Oh God.
Okay, like those fans, they would have been like, how about this? And it was kind of like that with Hogan. Like you knew that, okay, well, you knew why WCW brought him in. They brought him in to bring up the business, and so you knew, and so there wasn't really any fun or romanticism to it. Really, it was very cynical, right? And us WCW loyalists, we knew that. And so it wasn't that much fun for the WCW loyalists when Hogan was there. Like, yeah, he brought in some casual people, some people who had been watching WWF came over or whatever. But the WCW loyalists were never that happy with Hulk Hogan to begin with, which is why it made this whole thing perfect, because what he was saying there in that promo actually fit. He did come there for 2 years and do all the charities and kiss all the babies and all that stuff. And the people were lukewarm on him during that time. So, in kayfabe and real life, he felt justified in saying, well, fuck all of y'all. you know? And so the promo fit. It fit in kayfabe and it fit as a shoot for him.
Yeah.
And which is one of the reasons why it worked so well. Right. Like he was the only person that would have worked so well for. You could not have, you couldn't have made someone else the third man and gotten the same effect. It wouldn't have been the same. If it had been Lex Luger or Sting as the third man, it wouldn't have had the same effect.
Yeah.
Hogan was the perfect man because he was the babyface of wrestling, and because there was enough acrimony between him and the diehard WCW fans. There was enough acrimony there to believe to make him turning believable. And
Sting would have worked only because of a small pond situation. It would have worked for the small pond WCW storylines. But
yes, but
Hogan's turn changed everything.
Yes, because because us diehard WCW fans, we've been wanting to boo him anyway.
Yeah.
And back then, people didn't hijack shows back then. Right. The way they do now. Like, if it had been, if the wrestling fan audience had been then like it is now, they'd have booed Hogan out of the building from the day he showed up in WCW.
Yep. Agreed.
That's the difference between the audience now and then. But back then they were just, they were lukewarm. And, it was kind of, there was kind of a begrudging acceptance at best. And that's what made it work. Right. And the fact that it was him, right. That, like I said, they could have gotten a nice angle out of it if it had been Sting or Lex Luger, but it being Hulk Hogan made it what it was. And also the fact that, the two guys come over from WWF. Well, the third guy, it makes perfect sense for the third guy to be a double agent.
Yeah.
Be the guy who had come over to WCW and kind of planted himself there.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense for him to be the guy who brought in
Absolutely.
two guys from WWF.
Absolutely.
Over. So
absolutely. I totally agree with you, man.
It all fit. It all made sense. And it all worked because of who was involved.
Yeah. So I ask you this, because we spoke about a couple weeks ago about how Austin 316 was also birthed the same year, in 96, a couple weeks before this. We have also Hogan and the NWO forming pretty much today, 30 years ago. So which one meant more to pro wrestling, you think, overall? Which moment, in your opinion, meant more? Austin's King of the Ring promo, or the NWO is born, Hogan's heel turn?
Oh, it's Hogan heel turn. It's not close.
Yeah. In the moment, yeah. Go ahead. I'll answer my question.
All the Austin stuff was ultimately Vince going along with all the Austin stuff was reactionary.
Yeah. Yeah. In the moment, NWO meant more because the impact was swift and sudden. Whereas we didn't know. We know we got the shock of the Austin promo, but it was kind of shocking almost in a negative way. Like, wait, you can't say that. He actually got punished a month after that, I think, for doing that. Because he was off TV, I think. He had to get to do a dark match as a result the very next month. Something like that. And like I said, Austin didn't pick up speed until maybe a full year later. You didn't start seeing traction on that until months later when Bret Hart came back. You know what I'm saying? And even when you factor the fact that yes, Austin eventually does climb, and 2 years later he's champion. You know, it was the NWO's move that forced Vince's hand overall to change everything. And this was a moment that everything changed. This was a moment where the Monday Night Wars were war ready, but it got bloody at this point. This is where there was skin peeled, blood was drawn.
Yeah, because because of course about the whole 83 weeks. Now, before the 83 weeks started, like they were going back and forth.
Yep.
Nobody had really a real advantage on Monday. They just kind of went back and forth, and nobody made a thing out of it. But the NWO turned it into a rout.
Yeah.
I mean, during those 83 weeks, there were nights, there were Mondays where WCW doubled up Raw's audience.
Yeah.
Okay. That's because of the NWO.
Mhm.
And it had instant impact, and it changed so many things. Those guys coming over again, like I said, they didn't have no competes, but before then, because back then, they just because back in the territory days, guys, you gave notice, and and then you did your last match, you did a job on the way out, and then you showed up in the next place. And like even in the early stages of the Monday Night Wars, again, like I said, Lex Luger showed up on the first night of Nitro, and he still had weeks in the can of WWF programming. But that really didn't change the state of things. This again, WCW started doubling up, Raw's TV ratings on Mondays because of the NWO angle, and that is unprecedented. Okay. And it's also, when people talk about, well, what could AEW do to catch up to WWE, it would take something like that.
And there's no way there's no one that can change business the way. There's no one really that can change business in that way to flip that. I don't even think Roman Reigns could do that, honestly. As big as he is, because the business is different now. This is different.
It is, but you know what? I think maybe not in 2026. If that had happened in 2024 or 2023, when the bloodline was at its absolute peak of everything.
Yeah.
If he had just out of the blue switched companies.
Yeah, I agree with
that. But it would take something like that. I mean, because when AEW first started, it was nowhere near to the same degree, but they got a lot of buzz by getting some high profile WWE people to come over there. And like that's what it would take. Like you can get some more attention by bringing Mercedes over there, which they have. You can get more attention. New Day will get them more attention for sure. But it would take somebody like Roman Reigns to come over there. And to not announce it either. Like he would just have to show up. Just like it'd have to be like a shocking kind of thing. Or, or if somebody like Cena, right? But Cena would never do that, right?
No, hell no. Hell no.
Yeah, he would never do that. But it would take somebody like Roman Reigns or well, Punk made a difference when he went over there.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so but that's what you have to do if you're really going to like make a big.
Yeah. The thing is though, Hulk Hogan. This moment, Hogan pierced outside the bubble of wrestling. Yes. I remember late night news making a point to talk about this on the news. Yeah. That's how big this was.
Yes, and yeah, I mean, because honestly, it very well may have been, if we're talking about biggest nights, at least I would say in the TV, the national TV era of pro wrestling, which started like probably, mid 80s is when, that's when the WWF went syndicated, and then Jim Crockett, and some other people got some syndication stuff going and started broadcasting outside of their kind of territory. So if you're asking like biggest singular night or singular event, you know, in the history of nationally televised wrestling programming, um, definitely top five.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, definitely top five. Might be number one. I mean, I have to sit down and really think about what the other candidates would be. But that one night just completely, again, it did so much to change the fortunes, to change the very trajectory of professional wrestling, and we're still feeling it today.
Right.
You know, I mean, and you know, there's just other factions that are just kind of a descendant of the NWO. You know, I mean, you could see some traces of the NWO in the bloodline, even 30 years
Of
later.
course. Yep.
You know, and then of course in Japan,
It's being done better than Bischoff, but yeah.
yeah, and in Japan there was the Bullet Club,
Yep.
which is still on its own life support now. But I think they finally end it. But
Yeah.
I mean, the Bullet Club is very much similar to the NWO in Japan. Um, every large faction that has existed in the last 30 years can take is there parallel some parallels to the NWO. There's some trace elements you can find.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Well, like I said, it's probably the biggest infection point in pro wrestling history of the last 30 years, definitely. Certainly. So, all right, one more thing we get you out of here, man. One last thing, we'd like to do the anniversary of this show, of course. This year is the 30th anniversary of SummerSlam 1996. On 96 talk today on the show. 8 matches, 1 match on the free for all, which was Stone Cold Steve Austin defeating Yokozuna in a singles match. Again, Austin not picking up steam. I mean, this is 2 months after the King of the Ring thing, and he's doing a not dark match quite, but a free for all match on the opening of the telecast. By the way, this show took place on August 18th, 1996 in Cleveland, Ohio, at the Gund Arena, home of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Attendance was 17,000. The buy rate was 157,000. The tagline was "Opposites Attract." Here's the rest of the card here, of course. We had Owen Hart with Clarence Mason in his corner to defeat Savio Vega. We had a 4-way elimination match for the WWE Tag Team Championship, in which the Smoking Guns defeated the New Rockers of Marginetti and Leaf Cassidy, the Godwins of Henry Owen, Phineas Godwin, and the Body Donnas of Skip and Zip. Psycho Sid defeated the British Bulldog. We had Goldust from Marlena in his corner to defeat Mark Merrill, with Sable in his corner. Jerry Lawler defeating Jake Roberts. We had Mankind defeating Undertaker with Paul Bearer in a Boiler Room Brawl, which we saw the Undertaker, of course, with Paul Bearer throwing the Undertaker for the first time. And then the main event, of course, for the WWE Championship, with Shawn Michaels with Jose Lothario in his corner defeating Vader with Jim Cornette in his corner. The only 2 things to me this show that really, I remember watching the show. I watched the show not necessarily live, but I did watch it like around the same time when it came on Coliseum Video. The only thing in the show that stands out to me more than anything else, obviously, was Taker, of course, and Paul Bearer, breaking up, of course, after 6 years together. And then, of course, this is really where Vader's push ended, if you think about it, because him and Shawn had issues, and Shawn, I think Vader missed a spot, and Shawn on TV, lost it in a sense.
Yeah.
And you can argue this was Vader's push, because at the time Vader was being pushed as a monster and possibly a guy that can challenge, for the title. And right after this thing, he never recovered. So that's what stuck to me for SummerSlam '96. What you look at this the matchups here. Look at the card. What stood out to you? What were you doing in 1996 this time? Did you watch the show live?
No, I did not. Because again, I was still very just casual observer, and at that point, I was not paying attention to what was going on in WWF at that point. So I did not watch this show until many years later.
Oh wow, okay.
And for me, it was a 2-match show: the Boiler Room match, and then the main event. The rest of it was, skippable.
Yeah.
And again, Paul Bearer turning on the Undertaker was a big deal, and like Mick Foley was one of, he might have been the first opponent, or one of the first opponents that the Taker had, who wasn't just kind of like a monster of the month type of opponent, right?
Right.
Because most of Taker's feuds, most of his opponents were disposable guys.
Jack Gonzalez, kick up Bundy at the time, and yeah.
So many of them were just disposable guys. And so Mick Foley was the first, I think, or one of the first opponents he had who was not just a disposable like opponent of the month. And so, it was a big deal at the time, and then the main event was, because it was fine, and it's more known now for, Shawn getting pissed at Vader and Vader's push getting kind of killed because of it. And it's funny because Vader seems like the type of person who would have been tailor-made for Vince McMahon. I mean, because, with the size and all that stuff. But Shawn, at that point, Shawn was king of the locker room, and
He's a champion, yeah.
and also, and he wasn't in the best place personally at the time, and everybody knew it, but at that point, if you got to choose between Shawn and Vader at the point, you're going to side with Shawn, and and it kind of sucks because I remember Vader from WCW, and he was just a monster heel, and he was really good there. And his WWF career never really panned out the way that it should have. And this is probably the beginning of that happening, things going the way that they did.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was an okay show at the time. Obviously, in hindsight now, I'm a little more, critical of these things and whatever. Like I said, this is right now WCW is dominating the war at this point. Right now, WCW is taking all the oxygen in the room at this point. Hogan and NWO are going through, hook, line, sinker at this point. WWE is trying to figure out who they are, and we're still ways from them even cluing in that Attitude Era. We're not quite Austin 316 just yet. As you said earlier, Austin is on a free for all match right now with Yokozuna that he wasn't on the actual main card. So it didn't catch on just yet. We're still a couple months away from him. Brett coming back to the company. Brett and Austin go at it, and that's where things pick up at that point, little by little. So it's like I said, 1996 was a really weird year. I actually liked WWE 1996. Actually, in hindsight, I think it's very underrated. It's definitely a big improvement from 1995. Definitely, you know what I mean. But we're still we're not in the shits anymore. But we're still struggling. There's still stuff to work on, if you will.
Yeah, and man, 1995. I tell people 1995 may have been the worst year for wrestling, at least during my time as a fan or observer.
Yeah,
because like both companies were just shit.
Yeah, the creative was shit, bro. Across the board.
I mean, it was not. So 96, it was an improvement over 95. Again, to anybody, complaining about any modern day wrestling. Okay, look, I've been back in since 2012. I have not seen a year since I've come back in that was anywhere near as bad as 1995.
Nope, you're right.
I mean, whatever you think is the worst year for wrestling since 2012, I promise you, it is better than 1995.
And not just WWE, WCW too. Same thing.
Yeah, I mean, and when I say it was the worst year for wrestling, because I mean both companies were bad. Because WCW was like Hogan had full control, and they were doing like all of the worst ideas.
So bad, bro.
Yeah, I mean,
stuff Kevin Sullivan, so bad. Dungeon of Doom, so bad.
Dungeon of Doom and all that. Yeah, I mean,
oh my god, it was horrible.
Yeah,
and yet I'll still watch it because it's part of the lore.
I mean, I've gone back and watched some of it because I wasn't really watching it. Like I was just hearing about it.
Mm-hmm.
I have watched some of the stuff from 1995, and it's bad.
Yeah. It's really bad. So, like I said, SummerSlam 96, 3 years later. So, anyway, Rob, anything you want to plug? What you got going on with the
As always, Mindless Wrestling Podcast. Me, DJ, and Jason. And I have recorded some of my own stuff. I got to go back and I recorded some stuff last week, actually.
Okay.
I need to go back and listen to it and see how it sounds. And y'all know me.
I'm not judging you, bro. I'm not judging you. I know things, bro.
Y'all know who I am. Okay, y'all know who I am. Okay.
When it's ready to cook,
no such thing
it's
as,
ready to be cooked.
There's no such thing. I don't do it live, and I don't. You know, and what you hear is never the first version.
You should probably get into this little Graham Plattner thing. That's what you should do.
It's funny because I recorded a few minutes talking about him and then I dumped it, but it's well, I am on the I told you so brigade, okay, about him.
Okay.
Period. Because all of us people who y'all like to denigrate as being part of the Democratic establishment, you know, we told y'all that guy was bad news.
Well, like I said, I texted you yesterday that once they make it official, he's gonna be out of the race. We'll do a podcast on here, whatever it may be, maybe your platform. I don't care. We'll discuss it because definitely something. I have thoughts.
I told y'all he was. We told y'all he was bad news, and y'all didn't listen.
Hey, Rob. Good job as always. We'll see you next week, and yeah, that's about it for now. So Roll SummerSlam is off and running now. We're off and running.
Yes, sir.
So good job by you.
Which falls count anywhere.
Let me talk to you. Yeah. Talk about your songs. Talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says I just whipped your ass. You. Yes. You there. Sitting at home. Acknowledge me.
But guess who shows up for no reason at all to get his grandstanding and hot dogging in?
Everybody knows that Hulkamania is the strongest force in this universe.
Unlike you, I don't waste all these people's time bitching and moaning and bitching and bitching and bitching.
But I'll say one thing. I am, for one very, very good reason, the best there is, the best there